in the house. Okay? And here are the results. Men eat, men rest are in the extreme. In other words, at the margin, they dislike work relative to the wage. They dislike work. Women rest, women is, mothers rest. We divided women into those that have children and those that didn't have children. Yeah? And having two possible interpretations. Marcela thought that women with no children would behave more like men. And it didn't happen. It was the opposite. It was the opposite. And our conclusion here was that women being the second income, the same with youngsters. Look at youngsters here. Marginal evaluation of work is very positive relative to the wage rate. The youngsters as, of course, not only the second, but maybe the third. You saw this French movie Tanguy, right? Yeah. Remember that movie? The guy that is nearly 35 and is still living with his parents?
Yes.
So no expenses, only income. Remember the scene when he takes the bottle of wine? A very expensive one to bring to his friend? And then he takes a second one. My second son did that. After looking at the movie. Because it was a great idea. Okay, so this is the type of results that you get when you run the model, and you get this, the best is coming. So, what do we have so far? Understanding utility as a truncated conditional indirect utility function facilitates specification and interpretation. Second, behind the conditional indirect utility function in multi-choice models always is a system of activities and good consumption equations, and I hope that I have convinced you that that is the case. I propose a different way of looking at activities now. Those that you would like to increase, but you cannot because you have a time budget. In other words, you would like to spend more time with your friends, but you cannot because the day has 24 hours and the week has 7 days. And nothing you can do can change that. Second, those that one would like to decrease, but you cannot because of technical constraints. In other words, you would like to come from your house to the university every day in 0 minutes, like in Star Trek. You enter the teletransport and you move. No? How long does it take to come here?
1 hour.
1 hour. 1 hour. You would really like to have the Star Trek thing.
Yes.
But you cannot because of technical conditions, which is in this case the design of public transport problem. You come by car.
Yes.
1 hour? By car? Interesting.
Because there is always congestions. 2 times a week, always. It's fixed.
Okay, and third, there is work and others. Work, and I say others, and I'm thinking particularly of one activity that is taking care of third parties, where there is an externality called love that is not very fashionable today, but sometimes you are willing to assign time to take care of the people that you love. Okay? So work and others is here. This is our proposition to take a first look at activities and to make a model. For activities like this, those that you want to decrease but you cannot because of technical constraints, the value of a reduction in time is equal to the value of doing something else, leisure or work, plus the value of diminishing mandatory time assigned. In order to estimate this type of models, you require data in work-leisure cycles. Oh, this is important. We have been collecting data in transport for more than 4 decades now, and it never occurred to us that we actually needed, in order to have a complete picture, weekly observations, at least, in order to have a real interpretation of the value of travel time savings. So applications in Santiago, Karlsruhe, Turku, and the USA show that the value of work time can be positive or negative, that the value of leisure can be different from the wage rate, no pathology there. that increasing available time can be more important than travel displeasure. In other words, the first component could be more important than the second component, which is the results that we get in Santiago systematically. Okay? And instead of inputting socio-demographic variables in view, our experience says that do good segmentation. Okay? This is a review that we have just finished with a doctoral student in terms of time use literature, and this is what we have been concentrated, and this is what I have been presenting here. But the amount of literature that you have in time use is really, really much more than that, and we're trying to take advantage of that. I'm going to go quickly through this because using the same data, that is USA data, we run our model, calculating the value of leisure, and Rampendiana says, what if we use the same data, exactly the same data, but we run a structural equations model? I have to tell you, my dear friend, that I don't like structural equations because you just throw the variables and you expect the model to explain everything. Okay? After this result, I have a little bit more of respect with structural equations model because Rampendiana said, listen, you have been very critical of using only time to explain time use, which is what Kitamura did, what Chandra in the origin did, etc. Chandra is now convinced that the budget constraint was very important, and therefore we have joint efforts. I will show it soon. So we ran these two models, and we discovered that in our microeconomic model something was missing, and we call that the real willingness to pay for leisure. And therefore, in 2015, actually we created this before, but this was just presented at the Transportation Research Board meeting and was submitted to Transportation Research B. There is a novelty here. Goods consumption is no longer larger than an exogenously given minimum, but has a true relationship with time assigned to that activity. The only problem is that when you run this formulation is exactly identical to the one that I presented earlier. The only problem is that now you cannot obtain a closed solution. Once you estimate the model and you obtain the coefficients, you can calculate the value of leisure, but you cannot obtain a closed solution. And therefore, we actually didn't know what to do. What do you do when you have an elegant model that you believe that is more complete than the previous model? You cannot estimate a closed solution, but you know that behind that there is a closed solution that you cannot obtain mathematically, and therefore you have to solve it econometrically. What do you do? You call Chandra. Okay, so we ask Chandra. You ask Chandra to read the paper, and actually, so I called Chandra and I said, listen, I would really like you to read the paper and to offer a solution, or to tell me that it's impossible to estimate. And Chandra proposed a solution that is the solution that we are applying in order to estimate this with a system that has no closed solution. This is the system of equations. This is the equation that involves mainly time at work, okay, equal to 0. This is the solution that involves leisure time for every activity that is considered leisure equal to 0. And this is the relationship between these coefficients. So Chandra looked at the paper. He, believe it or not, reviewed all the mathematics. And the first thing that he told me when we went to Chile was, the mathematics are okay. Your model is fine, but I have a question for you. Do you have a sign on this? And I said, not really. Do you have a sign on this? Not really. And therefore, he put the random coefficients here, centered in 0. And by doing this, we could actually estimate a multivariate normal model. The essence of this trick is to define things in such a way that you can calculate the maximum likelihood estimates. Okay? For those of you, like my friend here, that are curious about it, oh, it's not here? Oh, I didn't include it. Well, doesn't matter, but there is a procedure that is very clearly defined in the paper that we have in order to be able to estimate, to formulate, to find the log likelihood function and to actually estimate the model. That is quite elegant. Okay. We did that with a former student of Chandler and former student of us, Marisol Castro. So it should be coming, hopefully, to research. This is the latest thing that we have done with a PhD student in Chile. What we did here was to capture from the literature that nobody has looked at the importance of those activities that you can do by yourself, or you could enjoy, like cooking, cleaning the house, taking care of children. Okay? Maybe cleaning the house is something that everybody would agree that is something that you would like to reduce or not do. Cooking, not so sure. Taking care of children, but the fact is that many people pay to hire somebody else, at least temporarily, to take care of children, right? So we came up with this model in order to, this is a general model for domestic work, so this can be any domestic activity, and this basic thing is included here for not to allow TD, to allow TD to be zero. In other words, the time assigned to domestic work could be zero, and the system would not collapse. That's more or less the idea. Okay? And here is this equation includes the amount of money that you have to spend in order to hire people to do the domestic work. And the other important equation is here, that is a relationship between the amount of time you hire and you do yourself to do that domestic activity and the output of the domestic activity. Say a clean house, say the hours that the children are being taken care of, etc., etc. You have to define that output very carefully. So we ran this model using as domestic activity childcare. We used a data set that was published by people from Belgium, that was made publicly available. So we wrote the guys and they were very happy. They didn't ask to be authors or things like that. We were very thankful of them. And we ran the model. These are the ideas we took from the literature. And you can see that the value of leisure can be calculated from this model. It is very complex. And then the value of work can be calculated this way by extracting the wage rate. And these are the type of results that we obtained. In that data set, they, excuse me, it's not Belgian, it's Dutch. It's Dutch. Dutch, yeah. So they have 3 waves in 3 different years. So we estimated the model using the total sample, and we estimated the model with the 3 waves. The essence is that we wanted to compare our results in terms of the value of leisure and the value of work regarding the wage rate against the best model that we could estimate with the old view. In other words, redefining domestic activity either as a committed time or as a free time. Here I'm showing the results of our model, which we consider it to be the best, against the result that we obtained with childcare as committed expenses and committed time. In other words, they stick to the minimum feasible. Okay? And the reason why I'm showing this, because the overestimation of the values of work and leisure was not that dramatic. It was much worse if you consider that those are free activities. Okay? So if you compare these results of the new model, including domestic work, third agent we call it, against the best alternative model with the previous approach, what you obtain are smaller values of leisure and values of work for the total sample, for wave 1, for wave 2, and for wave 3. So we truly believe that this approach is an improvement over the previous one, and we're going to continue on this line. I have to confess here that in order to run this model, you have to reduce your sample by a very large amount, and the reason is that you want to get rid of other things, and therefore these are single workers households. Single worker households. Okay?
In order to make it comparable.
In order to make it comparable, because otherwise, I mean, you're mixing too many things. So
you couldn't know what the difference is coming.
whether it's the size, the family size, etc., etc. So this is the beginning of the new set of models, so we claim. So conclusions. Through choice models, we have detected for 40 years now the importance of travel time savings. My interpretation has been that it is a mixture of microeconomic discrete choice theory with models of time use beginning with Becker. The interpretation of the value of travel time savings, though, depends on what you believe is the underlying microeconomic framework. In the more advanced interpretation of the willingness to pay to save travel time, we believe that there are two components. One is the relocation of time, and the second is the perception of time itself. I hope that I have shown that finding which one is more dominant is a relevant thing for policy purposes. But in order to find this, you have to estimate time use models. You cannot do it by only estimating travel choice models, because you will estimate the addition of the two effects. You have to estimate time use models mandatorily. And therefore, data becomes an issue. Because data for this, believe it or not, for some reason, when people began to be convinced that cycles were better than single days, I have a paper on that, saying that actually you don't require a whole week for every individual. You can actually calculate things for individuals every day. Okay? So it's not that bad.
Improve them now?
And yeah, it was transportation research case last year. Okay, the special issue with Changrao. For some reason, many people got excellent time use data, no income nor expenses. The Dutch data was an exception, and our own data is of course an exception as well. But usually you gather data without taking care of the income part, which is very important, very important. In making the interpretation of the results that we have obtained, we have found that talking with people, particularly people in sociology, because remember that I showed you that you can calculate values of work and leisure by segments, including the region where they live within a city, like in Santiago. Well, talking with the people in urban planning, coming from the discipline of sociology, really helped us to formulate plausible explanations for the numbers that we obtain. So we believe that inputting their knowledge into the models could be a rewarding path in the future. We are pretty confident that including this black box that is life at the house, there is a whole issue in economics, okay? Domestic work and how to, because you have models here that include the utility of the father, the mother, the children when they are present, the way they distribute the income, etc., etc. Very sophisticated models oriented towards other things. So this literature should be an important input into the new models that I have shown. And I hope that I have convinced you that time use analysis and modeling is a relevant part of the agenda on transport research. And therefore, it shouldn't be a scandal to have papers on time use published in transportation journals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sergio, for your presentation. I just have a comment, a very broad comment, before opening the floor for discussion. We are bringing economics back to its origins. The Greek etymology of economics has to do with applying principle to the life in the family. So you are bringing economics back to its origin. I have several questions and suggestions and ideas I would like to share with you, but before doing that, I would like to ask the audience if there is someone of you who has questions, ideas, suggestions. Valerio, please.
I have one question and one question. I would like to know something more about the data acquisition. I mean, which kind of data do we need? Okay, I understood that we need data for a cycle, but so we need, let's say, actual data, RP data on various activities of people and for each period of time in a day. So this is clear question. And then I don't know if I understood well, but I got in one of your slides that you said do segmentation instead of including socioeconomic in the model.
Yeah.
So why could you explain this more?
Yes. So let me go by parts. The type of data to estimate these models is within the cycle. For each individual, you need the total time assigned to each type of activity. Now, what type of activities you want to describe is going to be up to you. But our procedure has been to try to identify those activities that are present in all the answers of all the individuals, and that it would be erroneous to add. In other words, to distinguish activities that you believe that are committed and activities that you believe that are freely chosen. Okay? This is particularly important for the committed activities because they add up to a single value for each individual in that period, and they will act as a single variable. So it doesn't matter which are the components of the committed time, it's the time that you have to subtract from the total time available. Okay? So our recommendation is to take great care of the freely chosen activity because these are the activities that you can actually model. You have equations for that. Now, in giving you that answer, please note that this is like a structural model, not from an econometric viewpoint. It's a structural model of how do you assign time in a cycle, and the way you actually realize that time assignment plays no role. What I mean to say is that if you go see 3 movies in a row, it would be treated similarly as going 3 times to the theater, to the movie. Okay? This is not troublesome in activities that you assume that are done daily, like eating, like sleeping. Okay? but it could be troublesome in other occasions. Do you prefer to go every day to the nearby store, or do you go one day a week and make a big? And I solved that because my wife does that, and therefore I don't have to make a decision. That was a joke. That was already not. No, already not. But actually, she does. Yeah. We have arrangements as every couple. For instance, she drives because she cannot read in motion. She drives, and I read the newspaper and do the sudoku. Yeah, so that's the first question, data. This is the type of data you need for these type of models, okay? If you want to model frequency and duration, you would require more detailed data. We have tried to deal with this theoretically as well. It's not as easy as it sounds, okay? Now, the second question was, remind me?
Do segmentation.
Segmentation is, yeah. Listen, this, let's see, you really don't know how the very fact that you live in a certain neighborhood, that you have a certain personality, affect the coefficients. It could be additive, it could be multiplicative, it could cause interaction between variables, etc., etc. So instead of trying to capture that marginal contribution of a socioeconomic characteristic, my claim would be trying to make a reasonable classification. And that's the reason why I claim that interacting with people coming from sociology is rewarding, because these guys actually know about that. The type of families, the type of family that is organized. It is very likely that people like us like to go to bookstores, like to see good movies that very few people watch, and listen to certain type of music. Okay, so we spend time in doing those activities. There are other guys that do other things, that behave in a different way, that I cannot classify with the knowledge that I have acquired in my professional life. So searching for the help of others is very rewarding. And instead of breaking my head trying to capture whether this effect is going to be additive or not, do good segmentation and accept that these guys are different. That would be my...
Instead of saying,
This is one of the reasons why I don't like latent variables. I have estimated latent variables model, and I have published them, but I don't like them.
What do you don't like?
Because they are treated in additive in utility.
Okay. We never know if that's true or not. Who knows? Correct. Well, Paolo.
I was curious if the second component of value, the value of travel itself,
Yeah.
if in your framework can be mode specific.
Could be mode specific, of course. And moreover, this is a very good question, because this is the component that actually could be mode specific. The other cannot. The first one, which is the value of doing something else, never can be mode specific. But the second, which is the value of travel time itself, could be mode specific. And if I remember correctly, I think that at one point, David Hencher thought that he was calculating the components. And then John Bates, was Hencher and Truong? Yeah, and John Bates came and said, no, you're not estimating what you believe that you're estimating. Yeah, but it's the second component, the one that actually could be used as an excuse to get more specific coefficients. Yeah, thank you.
One curiosity I have is underline quite clearly that the important thing here is to figure out what is committed and what is not committed, okay? But as it is of a family, because basically this is what we are also discussing here, there could be an additional twist to this concept in the sense that maybe there is a committed activity, but that can be shared in a couple. What I'm thinking